Here with another episode of the North American Weed Tour podcast, episode 72, looking at cannabis around the country and beyond. Today, I'm joined by special guests, Dina and Kathy, co-founders of Curabags. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
Man, I'm hanging out there, fighting this, cold and gray weather out here in the Seattle area, which I know it's just going to look like for months on end. Where are you guys? Are you guys both? I know I heard New York. Where are you guys? Are you guys both in NY or where are you
I'm
guys?
in New York. I'm outside of New York City. So it's
And
kind
I'm
of cold
outside of
and gray
Nashville.
here too.
Okay, so opposite sides of the spectrum. I was actually born in Memphis. I only lived there till I was 5. I have no family in Tennessee, so I can't claim it other than where my passport says where I'm from. But beautiful area. Terrible for my allergies though, man. I can't.
Yeah, it was like in the 60s today, so go figure.
Oh man. So you guys, we're gonna get into the company in a second, but I usually start these off, kick off. I ask my guests their history around the plant. That can be personal or that can be professional. The plant we're talking about is cannabis, which obviously is derived to THC and CBD, which we'll talk a little bit about both sides of the spectrum today. But you guys would just like to share kind of your history around cannabis. Dina, I'll start with you just because you're sitting right to the side of me on here.
Okay. Yeah, actually I'm going to talk about CBD because, I have a history with cannabis in the past, so we don't need to talk about that, but I have a history with CBD because I have a daughter with Tourette syndrome. And way back when, I learned that CBD oil tinctures was really good for Tourette syndrome, which is, and in case you don't know what Tourette syndrome is, it's not just all swearing. Less than 10% of people who have Tourette's actually do swear. Tourette's is just motor movements, uncontrollable tics. So middle school is pretty hard for my daughter. So I learned about CBD and actually learned about it mostly through Charlotte's Web, the brand Charlotte's Web. And I'm sure, everybody in this industry knows Charlotte's Web and the story of Charlotte Figi. So I did a little research and started giving my daughter CBD oil. And it was amazing how much it worked. I mean, it didn't completely eradicate her tics, but it calmed things down. She has anxiety. A lot of people with Tourette syndrome have anxiety as well. So it really helped that. So that's how I really, really got into CBD. I mean, like I'm thinking like maybe 5-6 years ago even. So that's kind of where I started with the whole plant. Of course, knowing that cannabis is probably a better treatment for it, but it's not legal where I live, and she's a minor. So, CBD was a really great alternative.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. There's been so many just like miracle stories that have been derived from cannabis and the derivatives and the different cannabinoids of cannabis. We constantly hear just crazy stories of just different ailments and things that it provides relief for. So really appreciate you sharing that. Kathy, what about your history around the plant? Whatever you feel comfortable sharing. We can take it back or we can keep it a little more professional. Whatever's your comfort zone.
First of all, I'm older. Okay, I graduated high school in the late 70s. All right. So it was cannabis wasn't all that popular then. You know what I mean? It was kind of like an under the table thing. So we were smoking it in high school. We were listening to, ELP or Zeppelin, and we were getting stoned outside of high school. I mean, that's how it started, with a few people talking about, weed or grass or getting high. And that's how it was. I think that it's so different now. I mean, I think it's terrific with all the medical marijuana that's out there and how much it's helping so many different people with so many issues. But yeah, I was smoking pot for, a while, and now, I don't smoke as much, but I did switch over to CBD. I smoke once in a while, but I love to use gummies. I think it's great for, just sleep. I think it's great for anxiety. I find it very, very helpful. But that's how far back I go with, pot. It's just a, high school story.
Yeah.
I agree.
The 70s, that's definitely when we look at, just stoner culture. That's really, 60s and 70s is where that derived from. We look at, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I'm trying to think of some of the Dazed and Confused that kind of look, put the high school experience around that time. Obviously, I wasn't around.
I was in New York City, so it was very. People talked about it. We did it as teenagers. It was fairly, it was who you hung out with. You did it in the park. You went to the park in New York City and you smoked, and then, you walked to the store, you had the munchies and you bought shit. And it was great because you were young and you didn't have to worry about like what you were eating.
Right.
It was different.
Keeping the margins high at the bodegas, man. Shout out cannabis.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. Something that I found is really well. Before I get into that, actually, so I'd like to get the company that you guys have started together is Curabags. Something I think is really unique about that is it's not just positioned around cannabis or stonerware. It's CBD, just natural self-care alternative medicine, just bringing a different element to it without, from the outside looking in, not the branding that seems like too uppity. It's just something that's very welcoming, I think, to anyone. So salute you guys on that. But what's kind of the origin story of when you had this concept and what went into starting the brand initially?
Well, I had a conversation with someone who was coming back from London and ended up sitting next to these cannabis guys. They were in the cannabis business. They were growers. And he was in home accessories. Dina and I used to travel together. We were always in the fashion business. We were in fashion accessories and in handbags and small leather goods, things like that. So he's talking to me about upscale home accessories for cannabis. And he wanted to know, my opinion on the business. And I basically said to him, hey, Ronald, that's not my thing. I really don't know, but it sounds like a good idea. I said, but I'll tell you what, no matter where you go, even in Amsterdam, wherever, where it was open and people were smoking, there was nothing that was fun. There was nothing fashion related to the industry. And so I thought that, fashion accessories could be fun, like having its own segment, its own business, instead of just throwing it in your pocket or cosmetic pouch or something. I thought that, it could be cool if we built a line around it. And then Dina and I mean, we first met in Hong Kong because we used to go to Hong Kong 4 or 5 times a year. Then we had to go to Europe to travel for ideas. We were doing private brand working for different companies. And we had this whole conversation about it, I said to her, 'cause she was the designer. And I said, we should really get some cool piece goods. We should try to do something fun with this. The industry is so big. And I just felt there was such a void. And so that was the first kind of, think tank that we had about it. Dina, you can go back and remember some of the stuff we talked about.
Yeah, well, we just, she knew how into CBD I was at the time, and I had, where I live and years ago, CBD wasn't that well known, and here, people would hear about CBD, and honestly, I'd have people say like, oh, Dina knows about CBD, and it was just me just on the internet, like looking up everything I could figure out to help my child who was like. She was like 11 at the time. She was younger than that. She's 15 now. And getting better, so it's great. But I was kind of like a CBD advocate, so I was like, posting things on Facebook, sharing things, and and Kathy, said, hey, let's talk about this, and so we put our heads together, and then kind of 2020 happened, and things slowed down a little bit, and we finally launched in October of this year.
But we went around and we did our homework. I bought a lot of stuff, and really everything is it's all like utility driven. It's basically ballistic nylon. They're weed bags. Even like I said, in Amsterdam, where pot was for so long and it was out there on the streets and all, you had nothing really innovative other than a ballistic black nylon backpack, to put it in.
Yeah,
so we actually have 2 companies. We have Curabags and we have a label called Up in Smoke, New York. And Up in Smoke was strictly cannabis. That was going to be, it is carbon lined, and Cora has aroma block zips. So it also has that feature, but it's just a little more, I would say, classy, where I think that the Up in Smoke New York in New York, we would say it's a more downtown kind of vibe, kind of feeling. We felt strongly about both, but we just launched, like Dina said, in the beginning of October. And Susan Romeo is head of our whole marketing campaign. So we decided it's a lot. You got to concentrate on one thing if you're out there on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, and you get an influencer. And so we did that brand first, but we're also going to roll out Up in Smoke, which again would be a more interesting just for the weed stuff. But that became the whole idea. Why is there an industry that's so large and people are doing it, and I don't think there's really anything. I mean, we're an all-female company. There's, a total of 3 of us, but I don't think there's anything feminine and fun out there. And now one of the feedbacks we got after the website launched, only 3 weeks into it, guys started asking where the men's line is. And so Dina we just had some samples made up, but Dina has them. I've seen them, on pictures, but I haven't seen them. But that's something we're going to blog about now in another week and say that we're introducing that, because guys was saying to Susan that like, you all have some choices. You could put it in navy if you want. You could put it in a makeup case or whatever. Where do we put it? If I'm doing whatever I'm doing, it's usually in my pocket, my back pocket, or if I have a backpack, it's in there with all the other shit. So I thought it was a good point, so that came up, and so we're addressing that too. There's a lot of opportunity because, like I said, most of what's out there is it's all the same, and there's nothing. We used to call it in the fashion business eye candy. Like you just want to grab it and go, and so that's it.
Yeah, based on our history and fashion accessories, it seems like the perfect fit. So we were super excited about it, and can't wait to do Up in Smoke. But like she said, you gotta do one thing at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that functionality aspect, right? Like you likened it to, like makeup bags, because that's obviously something that you carry with you. So there's a fashion element to it, but it's functional where you want to store things, and, I don't know nothing about that, but I know my wife, is making sure all these tools and powders and things are, staying how they're supposed to, stored how they're supposed to, not flying out.
And you have a little kid. We were talking earlier, right? And little kids like to go into mom's makeup stuff. That happens. They take out lipstick. And that's the one thing that I feel is it's a private choice. It's a personal thing. Some people want to talk that they do it. Other people aren't comfortable saying that they do, whatever it is. But it should have its own compartment. It should have its own fun place for it to be. And when we do Up in Smoke, I also think it should have some there are things that you could use, like locks that you can put on. That's important. But yeah, kids get into their mom's stuff all the time. So that's another piece of this, is that I really thought that it was something that should be kept separate.
I absolutely, I travel frequently. I travel with my cannabis everywhere I go. I am a very at the top of the spectrum consumer personally, but I agree with you. I think I like to store my cannabis in something that's smell proof. It's usually not very fashionable, so I usually put it in a smell proof bag and then stuff that in my backpack or my my duffel bag. I just don't like to tell the world, hey, got some dank on me, even though I do. And then, being a father, it's definitely an important thing for me to the child safety thing, right? It definitely hits a little different. I definitely don't want my kid getting, whether it's gummies or flour or oil or whatever. I don't want my child getting into that whatsoever. So it's definitely important. And also on the other end, a lot of the offerings out there are very just like blatantly stoner, right? I'm trying to hide this discreetly.
Yeah.
But then it has this big pot leaf.
It has a marijuana plant on it.
It's not my style. I'm pretty black and white personally, with what I wear. So I don't like the loud things, but also, I don't want to, if I'm trying to discreetly carry cannabis, I'm not trying to pronounce to the world, look at me, I got weed in the bag.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of the feedback, again, we just did a travel blog on our website, because a lot of people are talking about now wanting to travel again, obviously, and being able to use these things for multiple things, for tinctures, for weed, for your passport. We have different compartments and it can hold different things. So travel is another aspect of the whole cannabis bit, traveling with cannabis and traveling with CBD.
Absolutely. Right. And so I was going to ask you, what kind of goes into the design? I know you said, the one line has the aroma locking zipper, and then the other one's going to be carbon filtered. So what kind of goes into it past just the looking attractive? What goes into it to making it kind of functional for cannabis and CBD products?
Well, can I show you actually a bag?
Yeah, let's look at it.
All right. So for instance, like this is from the Cura line. We say Cura or Cura. Actually, black was probably not a good idea to show you here, but let me see. Let me take another one with
the black metallic. You just have to hold it up more, I think.
Well, the lining is kind of hard to see on camera.
The lining.
So basically, we have the inside of the bags. Excuse me. have like an aroma block zipper here. Okay. So you could put, pre-roll or something in there. And then we have like mesh pockets. And the cool thing is a lot of them have a elastic for oil. So for instance, excuse me for being off camera here. A lot of CBD users use oil.
Mm-hmm.
So we have
the
these
tinctures and the gummies at a separate place.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then the linings are all wipeable. So if anything spills in there, just all washable stuff.
Right. So it's you can, if it spills, you can clean it up. And then some of the bags, like I showed you, this black one has like a divider, so you could put, you can't really tell, but some things on one side and your CBD stuff on the other. So yeah, they're very versatile. We have something.
If you show the front of the bag, Dina, if you show them the front of the bag, just to give an idea, like that's like a snake metallic.
Yeah.
Okay. It just looks like it's not, high fashion. But it's like fun. It looks like something different. It's just not boring.
Yeah. I mean, I would even use this as a little clutch. So I would put, I could put a pre-roll in here. I could put gummies.
You could put your cell phone in another compartment. You know what I mean? It can be used for multiple things.
Right. And then we have little bags like this, which you would probably just want to put, just straight CBD product in, or whatever. It depends on what you want to mix with your CBD product. And CBD bud still is smelling like cannabis. Right. So you got to keep it in place. Now, but what Kathy, we were talking about earlier is like a lot of the CBD users don't need the whole like carbon lining thing. So that's where we're at with this. When we do the Up and Smoke New York, that is definitely going to be more cannabis driven.
Sure. And so I have some products with the carbon lining, but I honestly am completely naive to what it does. What is the layer of protection that provides? I know it works. I know that, but I don't understand why.
Well, you know how they have like carbon filters and you use carbon like for when you have like a musty smell in your basement and you get those carbon things. So it's kind of the same effect. It just blocks the smell pretty much.
That's interesting. So is it another layer that has to be, is it like embedded in the material, or is it a layer?
It would be in between. It would be in between layers.
It's another layer.
Your lining, and the carbon would be inside.
Okay.
Or it'd be even more, like the carbon would be in between other layers. So that's what makes those real like heavy duty cannabis bags smell proof.
Yeah, those could have came in handy when I was in high school, and it would have saved me from a pinch or two, I'm sure. might even save me from a little knock on the permanent record.
I bet.
So what does your guys' current product offering look like? I know we saw a couple examples there, but how many pieces do you have in the line, and how frequent are you looking at dropping new pieces?
You want to answer that, Kathy? Or
the website is 9 pieces, correct? 9 or 8?
Yep. We have 9 styles.
They're offered 9 styles, and the best way obviously is to see it on the website. I don't know if you have a picture of the website, Dina, or something that you could put up. But anyway, there's 9 styles, and they're offered in 5 different fabrications. So there's snake metallic in black, white, and like a cool sky blue. There's a cheetah material, like an animal. There's a black quilt, which is a little bit more classic. Dina's holding up the cheetah.
I don't have the black quilt.
And so we would keep like a basic, like cheetah is always a basic. And then whatever is happening, like if puff nylon's happening or whatever is happening in the fashion business, we would add, rotate that in on a seasonal kind of thing. You just kind of pull something out and, put some newness in a couple of times a year for sure. Or if it's a younger customer, then it needs to be faster. You know what I mean? But we always have, we're full of ideas. That's not a problem. Right now, with the supply chain crap, it's like, it's tough getting the stuff over here. I'm airing shit because otherwise it's going to get stuck out by you, outside of LA, sitting there for I don't know how long. So that's a challenge. It's a challenge to small business because airing goods are expensive.
Yeah.
But we have to air everything that we come up with, the men's line. We also are animal lovers, huge animal lovers. I happen to like animals over most people that I meet, but that's just me. So we did it's true. we did a dog print, this great animal print, because you know how many people give their dogs, that's the new one, give their dogs CBD.
Right.
I mean, I always had golden retrievers. I still have one, but I lost one this summer, but he almost reached 14, which is great for a golden. He lived on CBD for his arthritis. And I mean, that's a big deal. So the pet CBD business is a big growing business. And I thought we should have some fun things, you know, with the little clips on them that people can just clip on and carry their stuff with them, or throw it in the pouch when you're out hiking with your dog, or, you know, he needs a little help. So we even did a dog print, but everything we develop has to be aired in for us to see. Otherwise, you just can't get it. It just gets stuck.
Yeah, those
Really
I haven't had anything manufactured like that since the pandemic, but I have a little bit of apparel. I'm not a big fashion. Again, as you say, I'm wearing a black. This is like my uniform, a black.
Yeah,
champion,
me too. I'm always in a black T-shirt.
Black too.
We're in the fashion business. That's what we wore, black.
Yeah, but I have some history in the apparel, and I know, you know, getting stuff that's shipped, you know, over by sea is a lengthy process without COVID. So I can only imagine.
We're
What do
lucky
you guys?
in that we're a small business, but we worked for big companies, big names. And so the factory that's supporting us knew us for years, both of us.
Years.
And believes in us. And even though we're just a small female-owned, you know, business, the three of us, basically. Susan joined us later after we launched. She's been with us a couple of months now, doing great stuff on social media. But we get a fair amount of priority based on our history. Otherwise, it's very difficult for small business when you're coming out of you know, out of China.
Yeah, relationships are everything, especially with that culture, and you know, if you don't have that history or rapport over there, trying to find one while stateside, while waiting with these shipping times. I mean, you could take a whole year of, you know, cycling through to find the right fit, and then pray to God that it's actually a direct source that won't change up on the next order completely.
That's right. And then your quality is good. You know, you want to be, you know, that's another thing we take seriously, our piece goods, our quality, what we stand for. So it's important to have those relationships, especially in these times. Listen, I would love to be made in USA. It would be great. I tried to price it. It's really just not possible for us right now.
Sure.
Right.
You know, it's unfortunate, but it's just too expensive.
That was always my I liken it. Ironically, Respect My Region started out as a clothing brand, mainly just t-shirts and hoodies, and I always remember people be like, "Is this made in America?" And some stuff we did, we're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Well, this is priced too high," and you're like, "You don't get that. You can't ask the first question and then add this. You can't. You know, you lose the right to ask the question on price if you care about being American made. That's right. It's expensive for.
Hey, listen, at least all our jeans are basically made here. I mean, we've got a big jean industry out in LA. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
The denim. And so, you know, a question for you guys, obviously, I mean, you guys have, I think, over 50 years of experience in the fashion industry, but what are some of the things that you use besides, I'm sure, just experience and intuition to kind of know, like, not only what's now, but what's next? Because obviously when you're developing a product, there's a lead time to get it developed. So what are some of those ways you stay in tune of understanding, like, what's next on the curve, whether it's colors or styles?
Well, there's all kinds of fashion services, and you pay to be able to, if you can't go to London, or you can't go to Paris or Milan or wherever you're looking, or Amsterdam, if you're looking for a different, like I like backpacks and a little bit more hiking kind of stuff. If you're looking for mesh and things like that, it depends on what country you're looking for. But there's a camera to the world. I mean, if you're paying fashion services, you can, if you can't go there, you can see anything. So you kind of stay on top of like what's happening in the streets. It's not really a, you know, we're not a runway kind of a thing. It's just who's wearing what in the street and what's applicable to your business.
And right now it's a lot of internet research because we aren't traveling. You know, Kathy and I used to go to Paris just to shop, just for ideas. I mean, that was, you know, that was great because you would see things, you would buy something in a boutique that was just phenomenal. And you'd say, okay, let's do something like this, or let's find a material like this. And we would just,
we weren't going to Paris to shop for us, and we weren't paying for it. Yes, we were working for big companies.
Yes,
we used to send people all over the world to travel. Those were the good old days. Now that
Yes.
doesn't happen as much anymore.
It's
But
she's
Dina, I mean,
she's
you
so
can rather,
right.
you worked for some younger, you worked for some younger brands too.
I worked for Red by Mark Echo, you know, the Rhino brand. I worked for him
Okay.
for a while. That was great. You know, BCBG Girls, which was out in LA. They had a license with Kuda Group, the Sports Act, which was very New York. Was that Ripstop nylon brand. That's kind of where I started my design career, actually, and it was made in the U.S. at that time, which is really kind of cool. Which is why I ended up staying in Tennessee. I ended up in Tennessee, and then that job kind of kept me here. So, and yeah, we have a lot of interesting brand experience between the
And
two
I
of
worked
us.
for Calvin and I worked for Claiborne, and then the big companies, big stores were asking us to run their private brand business because we had such strong relationships in Asia. So that's where we were going to Paris, London, Amsterdam, wherever you were going, you were shopping the streets, basically, taking your pictures, finding new ideas for materials, and then reproducing them, trying to get them to have that hand feel to, we were building product. Then we would go to Asia and, spend weeks there to just from Europe, go to Asia and build your line. You know what I mean? That's what we did for a living for years, but not over 50 years. I mean, I think
Together, 50 years
together.
combined,
I'm like, God almighty, I don't want to get older than another. Oh, yeah, I did this when I was 5. I was shopping the streets at 5. Oh, God.
That sounds like quite the dream job for anyone in fashion, being able to see the trends in these places that set the trends, and then to be able to be on the ground floor of creating, creation, right? Like that's amazing.
You really have. There are people that knew what they were doing, and there are people that shopped the stores. And it's not about just shopping the stores. That's why I keep saying you have to shop the street. You have to have an eye for, you go to the right neighborhoods, you kind of sit down, you look at what people are wearing. You know what I mean? You look at how they're carrying, you look at their lifestyle. That's more important than just window shopping, and
it's
so
the culture of
you
fashion.
knew in different companies, we all knew, like if you were at Calvin or you were at whatever company you were doing it with, you knew who was good at what they were doing, because you can go into a store and you see, and you're like, oh, everybody walks around saying, oh, green's the big color now, or that's not really what it's all about. It's how people are using the stuff.
True.
So, but yes, it was a great job, and we did it for years, but it's a lot of travel. I mean, you're in, like I said, you're doing Asia 5 times a year, you're doing Europe 3 times a year, so you're away a lot. But yeah, I don't do that part anymore, but I still, like I said, through the internet, if you have the right services and stuff, and you have that ear to the ground, and you build a network over the years anyway, that's really how it is.
Yeah.
But I would say to anybody who wants to start out in fashion, you've just got to be in the right places and kind of just see what's coming, past you, because you can get inspiration from almost anywhere.
Absolutely.
That's truth. And I know you mentioned the internet right there. And so, with the internet, what are some of the challenges that you guys have faced in, potentially getting the word out there with, I mean, you guys aren't, the image and the website isn't too cannabis tied, but I know being somewhat cannabis, even CBD adjacent, potentially creates, whether it's payment processing issues potentially, or, marketing or Instagram. Has there been any obstacles you guys have faced in the online realm of being cannabis adjacent?
I can just tell you that the head of marketing right now, Susan, is screaming, yes, in her home in Rye, New York. She's like, just,
yes.
Poor girl.
Yeah,
but yes, Dina, you can talk to some of that. I mean, it's so messed up. That's all I can tell you.
We came into it probably a little naive, thinking CBD is so mainstream. Let's just, CBD. Well, Instagram didn't like that so much. So, we did have challenges. We had some advertising blocking. We're not banned, at least, thank goodness. So we really are Susan's learning how to be really creative with wording, because it's kind of ridiculous.
We're not even selling the shit
itself.
And they torture you over your verbiage.
Right.
It's outrageous. It really is outrageous. They don't want you to use the word CBD. They don't want you have to be so careful. Cannabis, you can't advertise certain things. You can say certain things. So it's really a learning process for us. Very frustrating.
Well, now we're also learning that using terminology with ingestibles or anything smoking or ingesting is a huge issue. So
Yeah.
a lot of times we will advertise or post with topicals, CBD topicals, because that's kind of what is getting us out there, because topicals
That's
aren't,
acceptable.
yeah, it's more acceptable than an edible or something you smoke. So we're kind of working with that right now. Kind of learning it the hard way.
Yeah, that's the only way. And with the internet, I'm internet marketer by trade, and it is very frustrating, these platforms that are the algorithm, judges you based on keywords and not context.
Yes,
We were
Correct.
running a charity campaign for COVID relief, and a video mentioned COVID as a moment of time since COVID started. It wasn't COVID, that was all. And we were working with Google rep after Google rep. They're like, no, you're fine. The context is totally fine. And then they finally came back and were like, yeah, that keyword, it came on the video in small text. They said it cannot say COVID whatsoever. The algorithm will not, no matter, they could not manually override it. And obviously it's very similar with cannabis when you start using specific hashtags or words. It's
And try to talk to a human. Try to talk to a human on Facebook. It's not easy.
no.
no,
I don't
it's
know
not
if it's
possible.
Facebook or Meta or whatever. It's still not easy.
Yeah.
Okay. And she spends hours, and then finally you get someone, and they say, "Oh, you have to do this, this, and this, and this should be okay." And then 2 days later, it's like, "Well, that person really wasn't right." It's like, oh
Yep.
man.
Yep.
That's stuff I'm not involved. I cannot deal. It's just too much for me.
I didn't even know probably until the CBD Expo in Chicago that if you were on Amazon, your CBD stuff had to say hemp. And it dawned on me, I was like, no wonder I could never Google CBD on Amazon. It was always hemp. It would come up hemp.
Right.
So these brands would make fake labels that say hemp instead of CBD. And I'm like, it's crazy. It's
And you have
nuts.
to say natural remedies, things like this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think the industry is so big. There's so much shit going on in this world. And this is what we're worried about. Saying these little words, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. That's what I just don't have the patience for it. It's unfortunate because you need the media to, social media to, promote the product.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's what I was going to ask. You mentioned social media, and then as well the CBD Expo in Chicago, which is kind of a trade show type format. What are some of the ways that you guys are using to get the word out there and expose people to the brand?
We are doing right now. Well, Dina knows more about it than I do, but influencers we're paying. We just finished with one. I think her name was Jolene Goring.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? She did a
Yeah,
really
that's
nice
right.
job for us. So influencers, and Susan is posting on Facebook and Instagram. Where else?
We're
Do we
really
do
just
TikTok?
starting with that now. We're getting our feet wet and other things. But that's kind of where we focused in the beginning, is Instagram and lining up an influencer right away. We're also partnering with another. So when I went to the CBD Expo in Chicago, I met some other people in the industry, and we tried to kind of like click with them and say, hey, let's put our products together. Let's, cross over, I'll post your product, you post mine. It's so far, we're kind of dabbling in that a little bit right now. And Susan's
Yes,
been
got
really
some
doing a good job.
CBD skincare lines. We're showing their product, they're showing our product, that kind of thing. Pinterest, we're doing some Pinterest stuff too. I don't know, are we doing anything with TikTok yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, the collab aspect is a great way to get the word out there, and something that's also coming to the THC, the cannabis facing side. We're seeing a lot of that trend of product collabs. And obviously, I mean, you guys are to store products. If you get with the right products to showcase them stored in yours, and you guys are both sharing and potentially align with some wellness or other female owned in THC or CBD, I mean, that sounds like a great way to get the word out there.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Sure.
And that's the thing, when you're starting out, the awareness, just building the awareness, that's what it's about. Because you're not automatically getting hits on the website, but we're getting a lot of interest. A lot of people are contacting us. We had a conversation with a rep from a guy named Max, who was really cool, from American Shaman. And he's talking about their business and our business. And Dina met a lot of people. That show wasn't that great, but I think it was good for us because it was a good networking show.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, that's where you met Joey, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that, I mean, you guys are here because of that, right? And
Exactly.
I'm very, very familiar with the, from the apparel side to the cannabis side, right? Going to trade shows, setting up shop. I mean, I'm sure you guys have been there as well.
Yes.
It's a long, grueling thing, but it can definitely be just invaluable, getting, whether it's just getting feedback or networking with other people in the industry, and building up, whatever the relationship is today, in 5 years, that could be the most impactful relationship you had, that you met someone at fucking lunch,
Right.
randomly at some
Right.
conference.
And the good thing for me is that I had the original conversation with that guy on that plane from London about this idea. And so I'm first, right? And then Dina's second. So Dina had to go to the show, not me. I'm like, I'm not doing that shit anymore. Been there, done that.
I mistakenly reminded her how many trade shows I had done in the last 10 years, and she's like, "You're on it."
Oh man,
Right.
she pulled rank. She's like, oh, so you'd be perfectly, your skills are sharp for this, man.
Exactly. I see an email that says something about you want black tablecloths and this curtains. I'm like, this is not for me. No more. Done.
So
But Kathy and I work really well together. I mean, it's funny because we worked together, in different capacities, and then we kind of like stopped working together for a while due to whatever, and it just was like a natural thing. We're I don't know, it
And
clicks.
Susan's
So
like my sister. So that's it's a really good thing.
yeah.
We're best friends. She's like my sister. We all trust one another. And I came out of corporate, and so did Susan. Susan spent many years at Bloomingdale's and just big corporations. And we don't want any part of that anymore. So it's just female owned, small business, getting involved in what we care about. We're looking into charities with helping some shelters in our local areas because, like I said, we all love animals. We all have our animals. In fact, the picture that Maddie asked for the article that you guys were running, I gave her, like we all gave with our dogs. I mean, that's just how we are. All of us
Yeah.
have dogs. I have dogs and cats. You still have a cat, don't you, Dina?
I have 3 cats and 2 dogs.
Ah,
Oh,
okay.
man.
All right. So I just, I like that whole, friendship, female. It's like a bonding thing, and it's okay. It's kind of chill, It's
Mhm.
okay if we don't grow too fast. It's okay. I don't want anybody. Susan can analyze stuff like from today to tomorrow. She's great with numbers. She's perfect for marketing, and she like gets into it. And I'm like, you know what? If it gets too serious, I'm gonna fire you. But we're not making any money yet anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
That's funny.
But
And
we
so,
will. I mean, I'm telling you, we can just tell from the feedback, people like the product and they think it's a good idea. So that's good. But I just want everything to be just chill, and just
We're not
our time, and that's it.
Yeah. We're not in our 30s anymore. We ain't got time for that crap.
I love it. And so when you travel to this expo, and Dina, and then when you're looking at the industry as a whole, there is a lack of female representation when we look at what is comprised of ownership of cannabis and CBD. When you look at a lot of the marketing messaging, and then when you even just look at the clearly, which your guys' whole opportunity around your product line is, a lot of stuff is male centric, but when you look at who consumes CBD and cannabis, it's not as skewed as these other statistics. So what is like the importance around female representation, especially like within this industry?
Well, for us, it's a no-brainer because we have the fashion aspect. We have the fashion component. We're not growing, we're not selling CBD. We are providing a product that we have a lot of experience behind. So, there's like Cassie said in the beginning, there's no
No.
female, feminine product perspective. I don't know. I guess
I
just
think, look, for us, we came from the fashion industry. In the fashion industry, you're lucky. Females do very well in the fashion business.
Yeah.
They run a
Yeah.
lot of companies. My husband is in the financial business. It wasn't that way, and it still isn't that way. I'm not really sure what the deal is with the cannabis and the CBD market. I don't know it that well, like from the growing perspective or anything like that. But I just think there's definitely an opportunity for women because, like you talked about, they're big consumers. They're out there, they're spending, and especially for us, what we're doing, accessories is a woman thing, but I love that the guys already asked, well, where's my shit? Like, what are you doing for me?
Right.
And we
Right.
really came
Because
from female accessories, so we addressed that first, but
right.
it's important, whether it's unisex, whether it's male, we have to address that. We know we will. But
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, I mean, it happens in certain industries.
Well, we all hope that the stigma will go away for cannabis, CBD, everything. We all hope that. And we know that's going to be in the future. At least we hope it is. So we're going to have products like this because nobody wants to just carry, a black ripstop or a black ballistic nylon bag. It's beginning.
I think people do. I mean, I think it's fine. That there's a big audience for that, and that's fine. Your typical weed stuff. But I think there are people that are just a little bit more fashion conscious, aware, and they want something a little bit more fun, a little cuter, a little, and it's not really out there. So now it is, and you just have to take time in building, the awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned, the accessory market is, it's dominated by women. It's probably going to continue that way, but it's funny with the I don't know if they call it the crossbody bag, the male purse, the man bag, whatever is now like hot. I'm wearing one. I probably would have gotten beat up in high school if I was wearing one, but now it's like
absolutely in my high school.
And everyone has it now, but as a weed smoker, I can't fit these 8 jars. Don't really fit, and it's another thing. Skinny jeans. I wear skinny jeans now. Maybe in high school I could have fit a whole jar of weed in my pocket, but now these jars, and I smoke blunts. So backwood, I have all these things to consume this plant that I love, and it's like I don't necessarily need a backpack for it, but I need a little something as a man to carry around to keep my weed products with me.
Absolutely. And that's what I think, when you say stigma, like, it's come a long way. I mean, I do think a lot of it is mainstream, which is why I think it's so frustrating from a marketing perspective that there's still these antiquated rules on these big social media platforms that I feel should be open and much more liberal about something like this.
Right.
There's so many strides have been made in making it mainstream and legalizing it in so many places. That's the only reason I really thought this was a business, because look at the volume the industry does. And so it's a void. And yet, there's still a lot of uptight rules about verbiage that, I think is really unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, 100%. And you guys are helping play a role in breaking that stigma by bringing some normalcy to the accessory market, of making things that look like they fit in everything else. Again, like we said from the start, not just screaming cannabis centric, but works with the cannabis and CBD products. What do you guys have on your plate for 2022, this next year?
I'll let you answer that.
It's a lot. Well, we're having a big meeting after the holidays just about that, what we're going to add, what we're going to do, and what are, Susan does all these serious, I think they look corporate, but corporate, ad calendars, timelines. I know there's graphs. So she's going to present, what we're going to spend our money on. I mean, basically, where we're going to put the money. So I'll tell you one thing we need to learn more about is SEO. I mean, search engine optimization on Google. So we've got to spend money on some of that, and marketing, and of course, new product categories. We talked about men's. We're going to, do that, and we want to launch what I would call more of a unisex up and smoke New York line, with a downtown vibe. And we'd be happy to come back and show you what that looks like when we get our, get the samples in.
I can't wait to work on that.
There's a lot to do. I mean, you always have to add, you have to stay current, and you have to add newness.
Yes.
So it's a lot of that. It's the marketing, where you're going to put the money for the marketing, how you're going to work it, and who's been good for your business, who hasn't. Things drop out. You try something. Like, we weren't thrilled with that last CBD show, but that doesn't mean that we wouldn't be open to possibly doing others, but it's not an endless pit of money. You've got to figure out where best to spend your dollars. So the fashion aspect is not a problem for us. We have a ton of ideas on that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be doing after the holidays.
we didn't even touch on the sport line. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, that's right.
We
You know,
have
there's so many athletes. I mean, you're familiar with so many athletes, the big names that whether it's Greg Norman, golf, Gronkowski, and, you know, football, or
Phil
there's a million
Phil
athletes out
Mickelson.
there.
Yeah.
That have their own lines, and, you know, and we think that there's another segment for chorus sport, and basically that's, and Dina can kind of tell you about the looks, but I would think of like for golfers, you know, a lot of golfers are older. You know, they're out there on the golf course in California and Florida, whatever. They've got aches and pains. They're carrying that stuff. I don't know where they're putting it in that big golf bag, but like we think there should be like a separate spot, like a cool dock kit for that kind of stuff for sport. Whether they throw it in their duffel if they're playing football, basketball, or, you know, golf stuff. That's one of the core sport kind of ideas.
Right. So basically, it's kind of like the concept of our women's fashion line, but this is more like sports oriented. So they have big zippers, big
exaggerated plastic zippers, rubber, you know, logos.
You could actually put an oil.
And they all have the, you know, the clip-ons. What are those things called?
Well, carabiners. Yeah.
Right. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
you know, to stick on their golf bag or their duffel or whatever. We also think that's another big, it's true, I forgot about that. The whole sport category of cannabis or CBD, people using, you know, different stuff like that. So,
well, that just tells you we are like the ideas. That's with Kathy and I, we could the ideas
we're
just
not
don't
short of
stop
ideas.
between the two of us. Yeah, there's no shortness there for sure. It's just putting it in the right place and develop, you know, narrowing it down is
and building awareness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that, you know, that's a whole nother, the sports demographic. I feel like, I think there's, you know, the medicinal component and the sports demographic have been the two biggest things I feel like to help break the stigma down when you see professional athletes that are using it to recover. And you can't say, oh, lazy stoner when you're looking at, you know, somebody's at the peak athletic performance, right?
Right.
Yeah. And and a lot of them have said, if not for this, I couldn't still play today.
Absolutely. And I mean, you look at the statistics of how many people in the NFL and NBA consume, you know, which is not just physical, you know, athletic wise, but also very, very tough on the body, you know, and there's you know, the statistics come out that it's, you know, anywhere from 60 to 80% of active players consume cannabis. And I'd probably CBD is probably up to 80 or 90 at this point.
Oh yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Absolutely.
It just makes
it's hard. It's wear and tear on the body.
Absolutely, you know? Absolutely. I was never, although I'm tall, I was never a big sports guy. But when I had to smoke before I played, I smoked before I played. Man, I was help just.
They're gonna feel they're young now. Like, you know, Stephen Curry. You know, it's great, but wait, a couple of years from now, he's gonna feel that shit. All those 3-pointers are gonna get to him.
So yeah, I'm feeling it just from playing at the rec center, man. I wasn't even doing it 7 days a week.
Exactly.
Well, I take CBD almost every single day, you know.
I do. I take CBD every day also.
Yeah.
It's changing lives. Man, I really appreciate you guys hopping on here, having this discussion. Again, I think what you guys are doing, you know, honest to God, is really helping contribute to breaking down the stigma. So I really applaud you guys for that, because that's something that, you know, as a consumer that's been able to come out of the dark, if you say, and proudly profess that I consume cannabis and am a professional in this space, you know, I just really appreciate anyone that helps contribute to the breaking down of the stigma, because it makes my life easier, honestly. So really,
absolutely,
really salute you guys.
We're a different generation, but definitely on the same wavelength, you know?
Yes.
Which I think is also important, you know? It's I think it's nice sometimes to hear from people from different aspects of life who are also using, and maybe for different reasons, but I think that's important too.
Awesome. So I believe the website, Curabags.com, Curabags.com.
Yes.
Curabags.com.
You guys check it out. Thank you, Dina and Kathy. Really appreciate you guys hopping on here. This is the North American Weed Tour Podcast, episode 72. We will be at you guys soon.